Hello, listeners, and thanks again for coming back to hang out with me and my friends. Before we dive into our conversation today, I want to tell you all about something that I think everyone should go and lend their support to, and it all begins with a cup of coffee. Let me ask you a question. How much do you spend on coffee? Whether it's that Starbucks or coffee run, or your Keurig at home, or even good old-fashioned Folgers like my parents used to drink, we spend a lot of our money, and subsequently our time, on coffee. If you're going to continue to do that, might I suggest that you hop on your computer or your mobile phone right now and visit the Happy Bean Project. The Happy Bean Project was started by my friend Shannon Louise, and I'm so proud of what she's done. Shannon is an active duty artillery Marine that, along with her amazing group of friends and volunteers, visits homeless shelters, mental health facilities, and much more. Right there on the spot, they make coffee for these folks, and they encourage them over that cup to discuss their situations, their struggles, and they give them a safe place along with a friendly ear, something many of these wonderful people have never had before. This is something I can really get behind. Our show is all about conversation, and I know what a positive conversation over a cup of coffee can do for someone. Head to thehappybeanproject.com to check out their online coffee shop where you can purchase some of their coffee, merch including beanies, hats, coffee mugs, stickers, and more. And 100% of your purchases and donations go to funding their coffee events all over this great country. The website is www.thehappybeanproject.com. This is the real deal. Again, this is not a paid ad. Go check them out. Your donation makes all the difference to some pretty incredible people. And we're back. Angel and Nikki, Color Me Dead. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Hey, thank you.
So I actually, I was talking with you a little bit offline, but I started listening to the show. I was looking around for stuff on exorcisms a while back, actually a little bit while, and I found the Exorcism Anyone episode that you guys did. I don't know what date that was, but it was a little while back. It was a little bit further back in the run.
It was in October.
It was October 15th, 2018.
Yeah,
That's when we recorded it.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. So I mean, a little while ago, but of course, I started going back and listening to your other shows. The reason why I was looking for that is because my father-in-law actually is a priest, and I've always asked him to sort of start talking to me about, like, have you ever done any exorcisms? He's actually performed exorcisms before, but he won't talk about it. Yeah, he will not talk about it. And it's just something the way he always tells me is, it's just like, it's not something you ever speak of. Like it happens, and when it happens, but you don't ever speak of it again. You don't retell that. It's just kind of something that just stays with you. And
you're like, but you can just tell me.
Yeah.
You want to write it down, or
Exactly.
maybe say it out loud in front of this recording device? Or
That's what I wanted. I wanted to record him talking about it, because I thought, oh, this would be really great to have on recording, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. So we'll see. But I was sort of really into just kind of looking for a podcast that had done shows on that, and that's how I came across you guys. So I've been listening to you ever since, and kind of went backwards on the show and everything.
Oh, cool.
All your stuff.
Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, what you guys are doing with the show, it's very cool, because, like, I think we need more women-hosted podcasts. So I think that's great. And I feel like there's not as many out there as there should be. But second, there's sort of like a triple line that you guys walk with the show, because on one hand, you're covering some of the most horrific real life events ever, but you do it in a way that injects a certain amount of like humanism into it, and even some lightheartedness in there, of course. But I wanted to start out tonight by just asking you, like, was that a conscious decision from the beginning when you were structuring the show, like how you were going to cover these cases? Because it's really sensitive material.
I really think that we just talk about it the way we would have a conversation about it in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And for myself, I've been told on numerous occasions by numerous people that when I deliver information like that you really need to tone it down, clean it up, and think about what you say. And I'm like, nah. So I think that there wasn't really a powwow about it to determine how we were going to do it. Mm-hmm. It was just, we're going to get the two of us in front of a microphone and start telling stories.
And that's just how we talk anyway. We can't have a serious conversation without throwing in something to, lighten it up a little bit.
Right. Well, I mean, is that the best? I mean, that's probably the best format then, right? I mean, because I mean, some of these podcasts out there, they're scripted. They really have to stay on topic. They just kind of they got to be careful with what they say, how they deliver it. But is that really sort of the best way to go? Do you think, as far as just to keep the naturalness of the conversation?
For us, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of listeners that don't like the off topic. There are a lot of listeners that don't like the jokes, the foul language, and that's okay. And we've had people come over from shows, perhaps like Sword and Scale.
Right.
And that's a very serious, it's one narrator, stays on topic. And, that's how they like their podcasts. And that's just not us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well then, so let's go back a little bit, and just for the folks that might not know, they'll be listening to this. How did you guys get started with Color Me Dead?
It just kind of started out as something to do. Like we were listening to podcasts. True crime was our major genre, and we were like, well, we can do it too. If that guy can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And it really just caught on like a house on fire. And here we are.
Yeah. Really cut and dry. I like that. So I want to get into sort of what you do and how the show is structured. I know you talked about it's just like an organic conversation you have, but if you could describe the show to someone, sort of like elevator pitch it when you do that, what's that sound like?
I always screw that up and I scare people away. They're like, what is your podcast? I'm like, true crime, but comedy. And they're like, that sounds disrespectful. I'm like, you have no idea.
It certainly could be. I always tell people that if Andrew Dice Clay did America's Most Wanted, that would be like listening to Color Me Dead.
That's beautifully said. I think that's actually very I didn't even think about Dice until you mentioned that, but that's very, very true.
He's one of, oh my goodness, that man. I remember the first time I ever saw Andrew Dice Clay do a stand-up, and I was actually sneaking to watch, and I was watching it down the hall. My mom and dad are on the couch, and they're watching it, and I'm standing in the hall quiet like a little mouse so I can see it too. And he did the Miss Muffet joke, I burst out laughing, and my parents turn around, they're like, Angel. I'm like, sorry. So he's been like, Richard Pryor, Andrew Dice Clay. So when people are like, you swear a lot, and I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna ask you what your favorite Dice bit is, but for me, I mean, Dice was definitely up there. For me, it was like Rodney Dangerfield. My cousin and I used to watch like Rodney's Place and just all that stuff. Opening night at Rodney's. George Carlin was a huge one for me.
Love George Carlin.
Yeah, just in the I mean, even his stuff in the 70s. I mean, anytime a comic can just make you sit there and question, aspects of life and reality and things, and it could be very deep or it could be very shallow, but just those kind of guys, they don't make those kind of comics anymore, and they
really just don't. And George Carlin has a bit that I still use to this day where it's like, move your shit so I can put my stuff here.
Yeah.
And that was, I just loved him in any film he'd ever been in, all of his stand-ups. But I like the old guys. I like the old greats.
Me too. We met Carlin once very briefly at the Tonight Show when Leno was hosting years ago. And he actually, my cousin and I were to say we're huge Carlin fans is just an understatement. But I have a Tonight Show ticket signed on one side by Leno, and on the other side it's Carlin. But Carlin just kind of initialed it. But I remember he pulls up in this little speedster, this little roadster, and I think my cousin was going to give him one of the cards and give him like a pen to sign, and he dropped the pen. And I remember Carlin saying, "Oh, come on, you're fucking up my whole program here. Like, I got to get out of here." He was just such a great guy, though. Like, he was who he was on stage in real life. And even that brief moment, I think that was just I'll cherish that forever. Carlin was a legend.
That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as far as like the cases you guys cover, do you have any cases? I know you've covered a lot so far, but do you have anything that stuck out? Or maybe like our favorites for you thus far? I mean, that's kind of a terrible word to say, but like cases that you maybe were the most passionate about or the most invested in, anything particular?
Yes. For me, it was the first one that I did the most research on myself was Ed Gein. So it's a joke throughout. I'm sure you've heard it. If you listen to the show, everybody's always talking about how much I love him. Like, shut up about it, all that. And they're like, we know the answer to a question about you. But the other ones for me are like Fred and Rose West. I took a long time writing it, and it was awful. It was the first one that I actually had to like take breaks, and it really bothered me. Yeah. And while it's horrifying, it sticks out as one of my favorite, I think, because I put the most work into that one. Because I had to. It was harder to do. I had to be like, all right, I got to go do some more on this.
Yeah.
Well, and we had purchased material for that series, right?
Mhm.
And we're reading, so we each had the same book and we're reading it, and we were both kind of like, this book sucks. And so I hopped on Amazon and I found a different book by a gentleman from across the pond, and I was like, hey, if anybody's going to know British
Yeah.
true crime, it's going to be this guy.
Right.
We were right. That book was filled with so much disgusting
Ugh.
information that at the end of the day, she read the book and she handed it back to me and she's like, you're an asshole, take that.
Get this, I don't care what you do with this book, get it out of my house. It was the same way with Pee Wee Gaskin.
Yes.
Somebody loaned us the book and we were all excited about it, thinking it was going to be like kind of funny because it was an autobiography, and he's just a total disgusting human. And at the end, it was the same thing with that one. I had to be like, oh my, no,
Like,
I don't want to
no.
do this anymore. So when it was time to send the book back, I was like, here. I never want to touch it. I never want to think about him ever again.
I've got, I don't know, I've got 2 episodes, or 2 bits. I did a survivor story on Tracy Thurman, and she sticks with me. She's a domestic survivor, domestic abuse survivor, and her story is heinous. The other one, I did the Emmett Till story.
That's the one I thought you were going to say.
Oh, right. Okay. I think I've heard that name before. Right.
And he was a young black teenager that was lynched in Mississippi.
That's right.
For wolf calling, supposedly, at a white woman. I had done a lot of, I'd done research papers in college and stuff, but I put forth a lot of effort for that. I watched a lot of documentaries. I had a lot of books. I even got a book that was written by his mother to read and use. I requested the autopsy because you can't get it all willy-nilly off the internet, but I had requested the autopsy and I never got it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess on that note, have there ever been any topics that you've refused to cover just because we can't go there? Like, that's just too much, or it's going to be too difficult for me to do it or to deal with it?
The ones that people don't like and the ones that I think are hardest for us are always little kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the ones Angel always picks too. She's like, it's another kid one. I'm like, no, please, no.
Yeah, especially as parents, probably that's got to be difficult.
Yeah,
it's the ones that people will actually reach out and be like, hey, I didn't listen to this whole episode. I'll be totally honest. I'm like, that's okay. But there's a reason that I do.
Yeah,
those
that's
ones.
what I was just gonna say at the end. After I'm like, please no, why did you pick a kid one? And then we read it, and there's a reason. There's a story behind it. There's awareness that needs to be raised about such things.
Yeah, no, that's a fine line. I imagine is walking that fine line between, it's a horrendous case, but there's awareness that needs to be, spotlighted on specific items that people just might not know about. They're ignorant to, they don't want to touch, whatever the case is. So that's, I can imagine the difficulty there. I mean, my wife used to be she was training to be an EMT, or I'm sorry, a paramedic, and she I think she up and quit. She tells me now that she up and quit the first case that they were first on the scene, and it was a child, and she just couldn't do it. It takes a special person to be able to handle that kind of stuff, and it's just mentally, emotionally, it's very difficult, I imagine.
It is what I do for a living, I actually work for the state at like a youth center, and we do everything from at-risk youth to like DCFS cases where child services has stepped in, and then we also do criminal youth. Yeah. And there's been a handful of times that I've been, faced with dealing with situations with kids in there that I'm like, hey, you know what? Would you want to go hang out with this other counselor for a minute? And I'm going to run to the bathroom and wash my hands. I'll be right back. And I have to go in there and gather myself, like get all my poop and get it in a group so that I can handle myself and do my job.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's not easy, but I imagine it probably gives you the ability to do what you do with the podcast too, as far as, because you kind of have a unique perspective then from that point of view.
Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this, and this is just because as you're talking about this, how important, because we all know we're very familiar with the true crime genre. It's probably the biggest genre in podcasting. Would we agree on that? Probably. You think? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, from your perspective, how important do you think it is for true crime shows to cover smaller cases, less well-known, maybe even local cases, in addition to the big ones that everybody's familiar with?
I actually love this question. We actually will do what we call a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
And those are the, your Bundy, Dahmer, Gacy, that kind of stuff. And then we'll do 4 or 5 small ones in between. And I really like the smaller ones, and especially the local ones, because the people forget. You know what I mean? If you stop talking about it, people forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the smaller ones are cooler because people forget, and a lot of them are more horrifying than the big ones. Maybe not Dahmer, but a lot of them are more horrifying than.
Well, and when people think about, you get that Amber Alert on your phone, and people are like, "Oh, it's another Amber Alert." Do you know why that exists? I mean, that was somebody's baby.
Right.
Yeah, there's a reason it's called Amber.
What is the Code Adam?
For Adam Walsh. Isn't that Adam Walsh's? For Adam Walsh's? Yeah.
Yeah, and Amber is Amber Hagerman from like 1996.
That's right.
And locally we have Code Veronica, and that was Veronica Fitzen. So these things exist for a reason, and then people, I think, you just get so desensitized. You see it, and you driving down the freeway, and it pops up Amber Alert, and you're like, meh.
Yeah.
Like, no, you guys, really, like, somebody's baby is missing.
Well, and that's a lot of the reason that we go into so many details. It's everything that we know you guys will tell on the podcast, because you need to know. You need to know why not to be desensitized to this Amber Alert.
Yeah, I think it's great that you do cover the smaller cases, because I mean, it's somebody's family, it's somebody's kid, it's somebody's spouse, or whatever, whoever's at the center of the case, whoever's the victim or victims of the case. And I think that family is certainly never going to forget. And I think podcasting is a genre that allows people to kind of get their stories out there and to raise awareness, like you said earlier. I guess shifting gears a little bit, like how's the feedback been for the show? Like, do you have any good stories of anyone emailing the show after an episode and giving you, their 2 cents about how you covered a case?
Angel gets a lot more of the feedback than I do. I don't know why, but she gets it a lot more than I do. The thing that I get the most is, you guys do so good on your research, but why do you have to say so many bad words? Or why can't you just clean it up? That's not us. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I almost I liken myself to like Trailer Park Boys, where he's like, I can't not swear.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I've gotten some feedback about doing a couple of local cases where people were like, "Oh, you're profiting from people's misery, and you're nothing but a dark, shady, crappy person." And I'm like, "Where's this profit you speak of?"
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. How are we profiting off of their misery when we're actually getting awareness out there? Watch your kids.
Yeah.
Look how fast things can happen. How is that us profiting? I feel like,
and it's. I think my favorite one was, I actually had the victim's mom reach out to me and was like, I'm not angry with you for covering the case. I would like you to talk about it more, but let me tell you what you were wrong about. And then I did a follow-up episode.
Okay.
But if you go look at our iTunes reviews, most of them are 5-star. Then you get a few like 4-star, 3-star, a couple 2 stars, and then 1 star.
The 1 stars are the best.
We're actually in the process of, we're going to have somebody take our 1-star reviews and make a song out of it.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's such a great idea. That's such a great positive outlook for it, for that kind of thing. Yeah.
It's funny because we'll read some of the 1 stars and it'll be like, you guys did this bit for far too long, and we're like, well, you're not wrong. Most of the things they say, we're like, well, we agree. Just totally. Luckily, there's plenty more people that think that's a positive than a negative. So this one negative outlook on it doesn't bother me, because that's while it's one person's negative, it's 20, 30, 40 whatever people's positive, or I don't know what the numbers, but you know what I mean.
What was the one girl, she was like, just no. That was her review. Just no. And I was like, word, I feel you.
I haven't read them for a long time. Maybe we should revisit.
That's a great. I mean, do you remember your first 1-star review? I think everybody remembers their first 1-star
I
review.
really don't.
Our first 1-star review was like, our audio was bad, we curse too much, and we laugh at our own jokes. And I was like, it's because
Yes.
I'm funny.
That's why I make the joke so I can
Duh.
laugh.
Right. Well, that's a great outlook. I mean, I think with podcasting, so many like up and coming podcasters or people that are just starting out, when they get that first like slam review or that first bad review, just because they can. Sometimes people do that, or most of the time, I would imagine. It's really, well, you see a lot of people and podcasters drop out because of that, because they just can't handle that kind of a, that kind of negative attention, I guess, or that kind of an insult. But you guys have a really great positive way to look at it, really.
Well, at one point we had a lady that gave us a review, and we were kind of like, I don't understand what you're talking about here. Well, come to find out, she had gone to a bunch of other podcasters that we know and given them basically the same bad review. Like, that was just what she did, was go through and make bad reviews, which that one was kind of like, ouch, because she's like talking about how we don't do research. And I was like, wait, wait though.
Yeah, that has to almost be the hardest review, I think, if they they question kind of what you put into the show, because it's your show. I mean, you should know what you put into it.
Yeah, and then when we found out that she was saying that about everybody, the same thing about every other podcast, I was like, whatever.
Yeah, they're out there, and they just kind of live. They're trolls. That's what they do. We get a lot of that too. We've had our experience. I'm sure everybody has. So let's shift gears a little bit. I wanted to ask you both something. But talking about podcasting as a medium, because to me it seems like I've heard some shows. I heard Justin from Generation Y do a show called "So You Want to Be a Podcaster." If you've never heard it, I would definitely check it out. It's like the inside look at how podcasting works and kind of what some of the podcasters have to actually endure. And I wanted to ask you, speaking of that, because there was a few women hosts on his show and that were kind of doing testimonials there. From your point of view, do you think there are any stereotypes that go around in the podcasting genre when it comes to women hosts? Like, do we have a problem on a fan base level there, do you think, at all?
Not that I've noticed, but maybe I don't pay attention.
I've seen a lot of female podcast hosts that have actually they have to deal with much more shit than male podcast hosts, I think, just because just the natural way things work on the internet, with ridiculous fans and just kind of just overpressing fans and people like that are just kind of they think that because you're podcasters you're fully accessible and you have this you're a public persona and all sort of stuff. So I've talked to a lot of people that have felt like that it's very difficult just as a female host to deal with certain things like that. So that's why I wanted to ask you if you guys had experienced anything or heard any stories about that or anything like that.
I would say the only one thing that I've experienced myself is a lot of people ask for information that I think is unnecessary. Whether it's like, tell me about your childhood. No. What about your mom and dad? What about them? Like, that has nothing. And you know what I mean? Like, I get it. You're trying to get to know a person, or maybe you feel like you have a really good connection with that person, but my private life is my private life. And I feel like I overshare enough of it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that sometimes listeners will take a liking to you. And send you unsolicited photos.
Oh, Jesus.
You should never, ever do that.
I got my first one the other day.
Oh, congratulations are in order.
Thank
then
you.
I think. Yeah.
I kept saying that I haven't got any. I'll go to Angel because I'm not as active on social media,
right?
And so I guess I don't connect as much with our listeners that way. I do as much as I can, but I really don't that much.
Yeah.
And so I haven't got any, and Angel's got a few, which she shares with me so kindly.
I do.
Oh my God.
I sneak them in. Like, I'll Snapchat them to her so she doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And to combat that, I've actually started screen capping them and then drawing outfits on them.
Oh, Jesus.
And sending them back. And so I downloaded this little photo editing app that has like little stickers and sombreros and mustaches and like swords and stuff. So I dress up their wieners and send it back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Here you go.
That's giving it to them. That's good. I like that. I mean, I feel like that's probably inevitable if you're a female persona in any way, shape, or form. I think you're going to get that. I'm surprised you just got your first one. You guys have been around for a while, so I'm surprised.
I know. Well, Angel's got plenty. So luckily I haven't got any. But for me with all of that, I got divorced last year and it kind of happened through the podcast. I didn't really say a whole lot about it during it.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It was all a mess, but I get a lot of questions about who I'm dating and, and I'm like, nah, no.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably natural I don't know. I would imagine that women would probably get more questions like that. I mean, no one's going to ask me who I'm dating. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
not, I mean, it just doesn't happen for male podcasters, I think, or just for any kind of like someone that's in the public eye. I think if you're a female in the public eye, you're going to have to deal with extra shit that men probably don't have to deal with. And that's just kind of is what it is. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's not good. I wish we could change that, but it is what it is. You know, as far as that's concerned. As far as fan encounters, I mean, have you guys had any really good ones? What's a good one that stands out for you?
So last year, the weirdest one for me anyway, was last year we went to New Orleans because there was supposed to be a convention we were going to. It got canceled. We decided to go anyway. Okay. So we're sitting down on Bourbon Street and Angel's husband has our shirt on.
Yeah.
And it said, and this kid turns around and they're like young college kids. And he turns around and he's like, "Oh, you listen to that podcast?" He's like half loaded, like, and we look at each other, Angel and I do, and I was like, "We are that podcast. That is us." They're like, "No way. Can we get a picture?" So they all.
That is cool. That's something that's probably got to be the best feeling. I mean, I think maybe after a while, probably for people who are like really big shows, I don't know how they feel about it, but first time you get asked to take a photo with someone or you get asked for an autograph, that's really just that's hard to wrap your head around, I think.
We had that, and then we had one of our listeners at the Museum of Death.
Yeah.
That we were tooling around in New Orleans, and she was like, are you guys Color Me Dead? And I was like, yeah. She's like, I came here for you.
Well, the funny thing
that's awesome.
I was looking at all the Ed Gein stuff, and she just happens to come over. She's like, I thought I heard your voice. And she's like, she's like, I came here for you. I knew you were going to be here. I came here for you. That was weird.
Yeah.
But Angel had a cool one that they knew her voice.
Oh, yeah. I had gone out to Salt Lake City for the Burt Kreischer stand-up with my husband, and I was standing out front smoking, talking to a couple of buddies, and a couple of our listeners that don't live in Utah, they came for the show too. They walked by and she slowed down. She's like, are you Angel? I was like, yes. She goes, I would know that voice anywhere. And I was like, oh, hey, and gave him a hug and stuff. And I turned around and my buddy looked at me and he's all, look at you, famous guy. And I'm like,
it is weird going to Walmart sometimes. They're like, are you Nikki?
Yeah.
You think so? Why?
Yeah.
What did I do?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's awesome. That's so great. Yeah. It's such a great feeling. It's such a great aspect of having a show and knowing that people are out there listening to what you're doing and actually appreciating it for what it is and actually appreciating kind of the style and the approach and everything. That's really great. I mean, we've had a little bit of experience with that, and it's always very humbling, and that's kind of what keeps you going, I think, to be honest with you.
Well, and as far as keeping us going, we have a lot of people reach out after survivor stories and stuff.
Yeah.
And when you start to get overwhelmed with everything and then you have somebody reach out and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that your story or the story that you told helped me get enough courage to leave my situation. That's a lot of what helps keep us going too.
Yeah.
Wow.
It always comes at the time when you feel like you're just
just need it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Well, I guess that shows you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing, which is great.
We were both having like an extraordinarily shitty week, and it just felt like anything in the universe was like that whole Murphy's Law thingy.
Sure. Yeah.
It can go wrong, totally did, and everything sucks and the sky's falling. And I just happened into the post office. I was taking care of some stuff, checked our P.O. box, and we had handmade decorations for the studio. We had one of our listeners hand make teddy bears, Harry Potter Slytherin teddy bears.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. Like you can't just go and buy those. She made those.
Yeah.
That was dope. Wow.
Yeah, we get a lot of handmade stuff, and I have these stuffed sharks on my desk because we're scared. I'm scared to death of sharks. So we get sharks, and one for Angel, one for me. I'm trying to think. We just have their stuff everywhere.
Or like
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I had actually, I can't even remember what episode it is, but I shared a really emotional thing about why Lilo and Stitch is like one of my favorite Disney flick. Anyway, one of our listeners, she went on a Disney cruise, and I had been talking about this very specific Stitch print that I wanted, like framed art.
Yeah.
She took the time out of her cruise to go and purchase this print and then ship it to me.
Wow. That's
know.
incredible. That's incredible.
It's not my mom.
And that's like, yeah, I mean, you really know at that point, people are listening to every detail. They're listening to what you guys are saying. They're taking that time to connect with you from all over the world to do things like that for you. That's really amazing.
Yeah, it is awesome.
That's really great. Okay, so I want to ask you guys. So when I was talking to a few different people that said, when I was going to have you guys on the show and everything, and they said, okay, if there's anybody you're ever going to have to do word association with, it's going to be these two. So we're going to do some word association before we wrap up. Okay.
Great. So, perfect.
And I didn't even think about that, and they're like, oh, you got to do word association. Just throw out names and throw out subjects and just see what they say. So okay, we're going to do that. So don't worry about, just say whatever comes to your mind. Most of them are people, so just say whatever comes to your mind, and doesn't matter if it's G-rated or not. Don't worry about that. We don't care anyway. And we'll go from there. Okay. So first one out of the gate, Scott Peterson.
Trash hole.
That's a good one. All right.
I just thought of all the actual people that I know that are named Scott Peterson.
Such a basic name.
Yeah, I got a little bit sidetracked on that one.
Right, and if you don't know, if you don't happen to know who they are, I'm sure you'll know all these. But if you don't, just let me know. We'll skip to the next one.
Peterson's husband. I hate that fat bastard.
I know. Yep. I see his face right now.
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, here's one that's going to be an interesting one. Christopher Watts.
Ew. Hate.
What did you think of that case? Just
it's
on a sidetrack. That's got to be the most horrifying case I've ever personally heard of. Like, big name case or not, that's a terrible case.
That man is probably one of the most psychopathic people I've ever read about in my entire life.
Yeah.
The fact that he let his daughters watch him murder their pregnant mother, but that they begged for him not to hurt them, and then he sat and strangled his babies.
How the hell do you do that? Like, okay, with rage, one person, maybe.
Yeah.
But how the hell do you do it to little kids and 3 of them?
Yeah.
Well, 3 total. I meant 3 people total.
Right.
But holy hell.
Yeah, I watched everything on that. Like, it was a train wreck, and I wanted to see, everything. It was, I don't know what that is about our society. Maybe I'll kind of wrap up the interview with that once we get to it. But, I couldn't get enough of like watching, like, because, I think it's because we live in social media world, and like her social media was public, and they're a very public family and all sort of stuff. And you just watched all this unfold, and it was just the most terrifying case I think I'd ever seen. And I can't imagine that.
I've never seen a more narcissistic person in my life.
Yeah.
Just, that every look at me, and everything's about me. And what about me?
Right.
I'm like, you pile of horse shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's a punk. And then wanted to victimize himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what about me? What about what I went through?
Yeah.
What?
Well, excuse me, what you went through, you did to yourself, sir.
Yeah, terrible case. But I did want to ask you both about him. Okay, so on to the next one. This is a little bit. Well, it's not fun, but it's a historical case, and we're gonna probably get into this ourselves for our show. But Jack the Ripper.
Sneaky.
Who is you? Who is you, B?
Yeah, Jack the Ripper. I can't wait to get into that. My partner actually is like a huge fan of Jack the Ripper, and well, not a fan, but a huge fan of that case. And she was educating me on it. I was ignorant because I thought, there's not a whole lot on that case. There's not a lot of suspects. I had no idea how massive that Jack the Ripper case is.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Every time somebody wants to talk about Jack the Ripper, I'm like, okay, where would you like to start?
Yeah, for real. That's really how it's going to be, I think, with us too. We have to,
because that is a veritable cornucopia of so much information, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot of information, not enough.
Right. So when people say there's not enough information, blah, 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 and then you look into it, but there really is a whole shit ton, you're like, which one is it? Tell me.
Yeah. Historical. I mean, that's a rabbit hole for sure. I mean, that's a huge rabbit hole. Yeah. Okay. So from one rabbit hole to another, then Zodiac killer. One of my favorite cases ever. You think they ever caught him?
No.
You don't think so? You think he
No.
lived out the rest of his life?
No. And I'm not, so, oh God, the first thing that comes to my head when you say that is clever.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not, I remain unconvinced that it was one person first and foremost.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a possibility for sure.
But I got into it with my kid. So my stepson is 17 now, and about 2 years ago, he happened downstairs. It was the middle of the night, and I'm sitting there researching a case, and he's like, "Hey, Ange." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, buddy? I would like to be on the podcast." I'm like, "Awesome. What would you like to cover?" And he's got his phone in his hand, and I can see that the screen is up, and he's like, "Zodiac."
Yeah.
And I was like, "That's pretty big fish, dude."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why don't you go to bed, get up tomorrow, like watch some documentaries or whatever." And I said, "Are you having a hard time like sleeping at night?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, then don't Google John Bonet." And I said,
"Oh shit." Yeah. Yeah.
Godspeed, little buddy.
Yeah, for real. Good Lord. Yeah, that's a crazy case. I loved the film. I read all the books by the people that were involved in it. I thought they did a great job, and I've been hooked on that ever since.
So my little brother and I watched the Zodiac movie.
Yeah.
When I had to have neck surgery last year, and I was literally the only patient in the hospital. I don't know how that happened, but there was one nurse there, and it was us.
That's out of a horror movie.
Yeah. And so we decided to watch the Zodiac movie. I know we were fine. Then we went wandering off to go find snacks in the middle of the night, and I was like, "All right, I kind of am creeped out now." And we kept hearing stuff from upstairs. There was nothing upstairs.
Wow.
And the nurse was like, "Yeah, that does that all the time at night. I think there's a ghost up there." I'm like, "It's the Zodiac." I'm sure.
That's a great movie. Yeah, that's such a great case, and they did such a good job with it. It's so creepy, the actual movie itself too. Right. Okay, another one I'm sure you guys have opinions on. O.J. Simpson.
OJ did it.
I just was gonna say, not a Jew.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Hall of Famer Rod Carew.
Not a Jew.
And see, and I always think of that scene out of Barbershop where Cedric the Entertainer, OJ did it.
OJ did it.
Do you think he did it? Do both of you think he did it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that he had a hell of a defense team, and good for him.
Yes,
but did he do it? Yes, 100% he did. My favorite thing is that now he's actually got that book that he's like, well, if I did do it, this is how I would have done it. And I'm like, that's pretty freaking clever, dude, with the whole double jeopardy. Like, they can't get you. You really can admit it.
Yeah.
And be like, OJ did it.
Yep.
He could have written it and said, like, if I would have gone back, this is how I would have done it. Looking back now. But
I realized that, I don't know, there was just entirely too much evidence. Like from the glove to the blood on the shoe, the things in his apartment. I'm like, bruh.
Yeah, so much circumstantial evidence they just placed him there. That's really crazy.
Like, how the hell did they find you not guilty? And I remember when that whole trial was going down, my best friend lived across the street from me, and her mom was a stay-at-home mom. She was a nut, and she watched it and recorded it on VHS like, religiously. So like from him on the low-speed chase to the everything.
No way.
Yeah.
I just remember when they read the verdict. I was at school because I had office aid, and I remember it because we were all sitting there watching it at school. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I think everybody remembers where they were at when that chase was going on. I remember watching that. I remember, that's an iconic case. You know, whatever you think about it, it's an iconic moment. God, this is an interesting one for me. Casey Anthony.
Oh,
you dirty whore.
I hate that bitch. It is not. Your shit is rotten in your trunk.
Yeah.
It's your child. It's not pizza.
So that
I can't believe she got off. That was more stunning than OJ, because OJ, you said like he had the best defense team money could buy. So you're kind of you're not really surprised as you would be normally. That one shocked the shit out of me when she got off.
Same.
You and me both. And what really frustrated me is so I watched that entire case all the way through. And what really frustrated me is that they went so far as to attack her dad, claiming that her dad molested her and all this other crazy shit, saying that is why she is the way she is. Not saying she didn't do what she fucking did,
exactly.
But she did it because, her dad used to drag her down the hall and put her in Uncle Touchy's puzzle closet. No.
Yeah.
And when she told everyone she worked at Universal and like took people there and got through, I was like, you clearly are unhinged.
Well, and she's a master manipulator, but the fact that, you know, they were like, oh, well, she, you know, the baby accidentally drowned and she panicked. What? No.
Yeah.
You panic by putting her in a trash bag and in your
taping
trunk?
her mouth shut because there was duct tape present, and you decided to dump her body down the street from your house
and then go party for a couple of days.
Yeah.
A couple.
Yeah.
Like 30
30, 45
anyway.
couple.
And if you haven't watched that where Casey Anthony's parents speak, those people need help.
I just recorded one where they no, not Casey Anthony. Never mind.
Well, she wants to have another kid now and everything, right? Or is she pregnant already or something like that?
I think she is pregnant.
Supposedly she is with child, which I think is an absolutely unfortunate event.
State should have sterilized her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or or not. Oh, when she has the kid, take the kid right away or something.
Seriously.
You know, something, whatever. Do something. That's a brutal one. Okay, here's another one I got like neck deep into, and I just couldn't turn away from. Jodi Arias.
That's who I was talking about. This is Angels.
Talk about psychosis, but I loved that case though.
Okay, so Jodi Arias is my chameleon. She's like, whatever you want me to be to make you love me, I will be that. You don't want me? What else I gotta be? And then she'll change into something else, morph into a complete psycho. Well, she was before. But all the effort that she put in to that is pretty impressive. You know what I think too is
agreed.
The anger and the rage inside that woman is insurmountable. It's like nothing I've ever seen. So for her to be able to accomplish what she did, damn, dude.
Agreed. Yeah.
I just recorded something that I can't remember what channel it was on, like Reels or something, where they talk to her friends about the whole thing. I haven't watched it yet, but I want to watch it.
Well, the craziest part of that whole thing was the end when she was able to make her closing statement, and she was trying to like hawk T-shirts in the courtroom about like something about what she was working on for like a nonprofit or something. I'm sitting here thinking, this chick is unhinged. I mean,
do you know where you are? Take a pause.
I don't think she did. I really think she should. That's one of those people that's a candidate for insanity. I really believe.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
I don't think she was insane when she planned. I think that she did dip out a little bit when she executed it.
Something snapped in her. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because what she actually did to that man is vicious. And if you look up those photos of him, what she did to his neck.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
The way she, like, if you watch her in the courtroom and she'll like turn around and make these like coy bedroom faces at people, and then when she realizes that other people, like, she was trying to seduce jurors from the witness box or whatever, or the defense box, and she would get caught, and then she would like straighten up and try to make herself mousy and plain Jane and kind of homely, and I'm like, bitch, I see you. Did you know that I could see you?
She's all looking at the jurors like, this could be you.
Good Lord. Yeah, that was crazy. I remember watching that like cheesy Lifetime movie version of the case. Yeah, it's just that woman is very unhinged. I think maybe not at first. Yeah, I agree. Maybe something snapped in her, but she's definitely not sane at all.
I kind of see her as. Did you ever watch the movie? What was it? Crush with
one of my favorites ever. That's a great movie.
Oh my God. That's kind of how I see her.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
If anybody was going to describe her, Shakespeare would have had it, dude. Lady Macbeth, innocent flower on the outside with a serpent underneath.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, the Crush. That's a great way to relate it. I agree 100%. Okay, let's talk about a few really heavy hitters. John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne.
Ew.
I want to. You know what?
I felt the shivers from here.
Yeah, dude, I just don't like it.
I shuddered so hard my butthole puckered. Oh God. The fact of the matter is that what I know about him is that he idolized Dean Corll, and I know what Dean Corll did.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he also knew what Dean Corll did and wanted to emulate that big pastrami smelling greasy fat.
Oh, could you imagine what he smelled like?
Yeah, it's funny, like going back to like talking about George Carlin when he said we didn't doing that bit about, oh well, don't give me that shit about I love my children. Bullshit. John Wayne Gacy loved his children. He kept them all out in the front yard.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Ugh.
that guy is
Something
that might be the
happened.
most horrendous one ever. That might be it.
Something happened in the Midwest around that time that everybody just went batshit.
I kind of
Yeah.
feel the same way. Like if you really stop and think about it, there was just a lot of serial killers that were unearthed in that little
Area.
little area that I'm
I
like,
have-
who the hell? Like, did your dad beat you? Did your
Yeah.
mom? Like, what happened?
What did they put in the water
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Midwest in the late 70s?
Yeah, agreed. And you know what? On another front, or another case, another big one. Can somebody explain to me what the appeal of Ted Bundy is? Did I miss something here? I mean, I know Ted Bundy's a huge case, but was that guy really as like like everybody said the women loved him and they just flocked to him? Like, what's the big deal about Ted Bundy?
Handsome. You know what I mean? Like, if you
Was it the
didn't know
charm?
anything,
You think?
Yeah, he was a huge charmer.
well, he was charismatic, but that's the thing. For that time, like, of course, a lot of women look at him now and they're like, all I see is a serial killer.
Right.
Well, no shit, bitch. But like, if you had seen him back in the day, like he was fit, he was handsome, he was charismatic.
He was
Yeah.
going to college.
like,
he knew how to talk to you. He
And he
knew
was-
how to get what he wanted.
Of course.
Yeah.
So back then, yeah. And when you see this gentleman standing in front of you, broad shouldered, dark hair, tall, dark, and handsome thing,
Yeah.
And
and he's well spoken and he's complimentary and he carries himself well. No wonder.
Well, and for a lot of them, he had crutches and pretended like he was hurt and was like, "Can you carry my books for me, please?" And they're like, "Oh, look at this hot dude wants me to carry his books. Well, I can help you out there, sir."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like he had a lot of manipulation. There's a book by Anne Rule that I listened to it while I was cleaning,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. Because she was in a crisis hotline with him. They did it together. Like they would do late night. This was before he started murdering. All throughout everything going on, he was calling her and contacting her. She got the contract to write the book about this unknown killer.
Yeah.
While she's still talking to him, and then found out during the process of writing the book that it was him, one of her best friends.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
how
incredible.
crazy is that? So if you get a chance, check it out. It's a huge, long book, but it's a really good one.
Did you guys see the I'm sure you saw the Zac Efron Netflix
Yeah.
piece on him? What did you think of that?
I felt like it was like a flash, like on Facebook when they do your memories of the year and there's like 5 different pictures and they kind of cover what your year was like, but not really.
How do you think he did as far as like acting, as far as portraying him? I thought he looked pretty close.
He did really well.
Yeah.
I actually, Zac Efron from Disney to now, he's actually pretty impressive. Like
I really love him.
I do too.
You know, when he talks and does interviews and things, he always tells people, you know, look, don't go for this. This is not realistic. This is not, because there's so much out there like that for women. But like, I like that there's a guy that's actually saying, look, dude, don't do this. Like, this is really sort of insane what I'm doing.
Stop.
Yeah.
And that's something that I actually tell people a lot. You know, a couple of the younger kids that have found Color Me Dead, I'm like, stop romanticizing abuse and murder and serial killers. Like, it's not pretty. It's not romantic. It's not, you know what I mean? It's kind of like there was one little girl on Instagram, and I don't know if she still follows us or not, but she was talking about like, oh, you guys write to serial killers, I'm going to write to serial killers too, and da-da-da-da-da, and then I'm going to go get this Joker and Harley Quinn tattoo, and I was like, stop.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great segue. And that's kind of one of the last questions I wanted to wrap up with tonight is what advice would you give? What are your thoughts on, I guess, the overall general mentality? Why are we so fascinated with these cases, with true crime? I mean, as we talked early on in the conversation, like true crime is the #1 genre in podcasting, or at least at the very top. Why are we so fascinated with these terrible, terrible cases and these people that are doing these horrific things? What's the deal there?
For me, it's the psychology of it. I want to know why. Like, my favorite part is digging from their birth to when it happened. After what they did, like after they start murdering and stuff, I don't really give a shit. I do, but I don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's everything. I want to know why. What was your trigger? Were you born like this? Did something happen? That's why I'm fascinated with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just, it's human nature. It's that whole train wreck, like, oh my God, there's a car wreck, this horrifying car wreck. So you slow down and look.
Yeah.
It's just human nature, I think. And that's the thing is like, just because there's a spotlight on it now and we have like true crime is way more accessible. We have TV, we have podcasts, we have, all these different avenues. We have books and magazines.
It's a $1 billion industry now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that didn't stop us. I mean, if you go back and look at all the true crime books that were written, back 70s, 80s, 90s, it's always been there. It's always been there. But the morbid, the macabre, the dark, it's always been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just more accepted now too.
Yeah. Like now it's totally okay to be like, hey, did you guys know that in Louisiana, if you go to New Orleans, there's a whole museum full of dead things, and people are like, no shit, I'd like to go.
Yeah.
If you had said that 20 years ago, people would have been like, is your mom afraid of you?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to have sharp objects?
It's very similar to disappearances and what we cover. Like, so like, it's obviously a much less edgier case, but like the Earhart case, like we put 80 episodes out, and I always ask everybody, all these great people, why do people care? What is the deal? And it's like, because people don't like question marks. They don't. It's a natural thing. People want to know. It's like, well, what the fuck happened to those two people? It just, it's like they vanished into thin air, and there's no oil slick, there's no wreckage. 82 years, no one's come up with shit. What happened to them? Yep. And so it's like, oh, we're just going to put it to bed. They belong to history now. It's over. We're good. And then a few minutes there, it's like, no, but what the hell happened to them though? Like, it's really weird. Like, so I guess I get that. It's the same thing with true crime. It's like, why are we so fascinated with these people? It's like, because we're kind of naturally curious about the morbid and the terrible. And can't get enough of it.
Something that I actually really liked about the Amelia Earhart is that I can actually listen to that and play it for the youth.
Yeah,
because
sure.
It's educational.
Yeah. Well, and she was such she's still, Smithsonian, we were talking to them. It's like, yeah, she's still America's sweetheart even today.
Oh yeah.
When people see Amelia Earhart, it's like, oh, like she's America's, that she was great. Look what she did. Look how she inspired. I mean, people are still, it's funny. We were when we were doing the stuff in Atchison, first day I got to the museum she was born, or the house she was born in is now a museum. And we went up to the room, and it was the room she had when she was like 10 or 11 years old or something. Little girls write letters to her still now to this day. And people are saying like, oh, dear Amelia, like, I wonder what happened to you. Like, are you ever going to come home? Like things like that. It's just like, it's heartbreaking, but it's like, name another woman that kids in 2020 write letters to that has been dead for 8. It's like, you're not going to find it. It just doesn't happen. Wow. And it's like, that's the impact that someone like that had. And I think that's part of it right there. That's why people don't let go of this disappearance. It's like, well, she deserves better, and Noonan deserved better, who was with her. And it's like, we need to find out what happened. So therein lies that burning flame that just keeps going and going and going and going for this.
Right.
So, it's not unlike true crime and everything that's into it. It's like, people want to know what happened to these people, and if they disappeared, or if they, we never found a body. It's a terrible situation. And like you alluded to earlier, families want to know. Somebody's daughter, somebody's husband, somebody's, wife, whatever. And it's a terrible thing. Oh, well, all right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I want to ask you one more question. So like a couple of years ago, we held a joint podcast panel in Kansas, actually, with the guys at Gen Y and Astonishing Legends. And we had like an audience Q&A, and after the Q&A, I sort of selfishly reserved like the final question for me to ask them, since I was like, I'm hosting everything. This is my thing. So I'm going to ask you the final question. I want to end our chat tonight by asking you the same question. So here it is. Really, just tell me the best part about working with your co-host. And Angel, we'll start with you.
The best part about working with my co-host is that she...
Don't cry.
Like, without fail, is probably one of the best people on the face of this planet. She will put me first, even when she has no time, and she'll work around all the crazy. If I called her and I'm like, hey man, I just worked a graveyard and I'm kind of out of it. Can we do this? And we just fly by the seat of our pants. But even when she's got stuff going on, if I'm sick, she'll call. What do you need? I'm going into town. Can I get you anything? Like, working with your best friend, I'm sure that a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do that. I can.
Yeah. Wow. There you go. All right, your turn.
For me, it's the same thing. She does a lot of the same stuff for me, because there's times that I'm like, I can't, can we reschedule or whatever? But the biggest thing is that, like, she's the yin to my yang. Like, there's certain things that I do that I know, like, my side, I know how to do it, but then there's other stuff that she does that it's like, I would have never ever thought of this. The cases that she comes up with, the way that she writes them, it's like,
yeah,
it's like a team, like you put us together and we're a real team, because we're alike, but we're so much different all at the same time that
peanut butter jelly.
Yes, when we go together, it's great.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, that is a show. I really appreciate it. Before we go, can you guys tell everybody where they can find Color Me Dead, plug your Twitters, whatever you want. Just put it all out there for us.
I don't know.
Word is shit. Plug it in.
Yeah.
Plug it in. If you guys want to check us out, go to ageofradio.org/colormedead for all of our episodes. You can find us at Twitter at Color Me Dead Pod. Find us on Facebook at the Color Me Dead Podcast, and Instagram, Color Me Dead Podcast, Gory_Nikki or Color Me Dead Angel.
And you can get our merch at colormedeadpod.threadless.com.
Turter.
Almost messed that one up. I have one job.
There you go. Awesome. This has been a pleasure. Thank you both so much. I've been wanting to do this for a while now, and I really appreciate it. The podcast is Color Me Dead. We'll have links to everything that we've talked about tonight in the show notes. Thank you both. It's been a really
thanks for having us, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
If you made it all the way through our conversation tonight, I want to thank you for hanging out with me and my friends. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Please visit us on social media as we post each new conversation as they air. News, show information, and much more. Go to facebook.com/me and my friends pod. On Twitter, you can search the handle me my friends pod. And on Instagram, you can find us by searching the handle at me and my friends pod. If you enjoyed our conversation tonight, please do me a favor and head to iTunes to rate us and leave us a review. As a brand new podcast, we need all the help we can get, and your time is truly appreciated. Me and My Friends is produced by Vanessa Williamson and edited by me, Chris Williamson. Tonight, the podcast featured the original song, Revenge, by producer Rediman. The opinions on Me and My Friends are those of the individual guests and may not reflect those of Chris Evan Films Incorporated. Chris Evan Films Incorporated is not affiliated with the films or clips referred to herein. Any audio clips used in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purposes of education and entertainment, and no infringement is ever intended. Me and My Friends is an exclusive trademark of Chris Evan Films Incorporated and may not be used without the express written consent of Chris Evan Films Incorporated, all rights reserved. Me and My Friends is a Chris Evan Films production, copyright 2020, all rights reserved.